Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Amber Ludwig, and I am an online business development expert. And along the way, I have come across the most fabulous woman. Her name is Heather Elliott, and she was sent to me. We connected through a mutual colleague, and I'm so grateful for that because Heather is doing some really impressive things with her business up in Canada. And I've had the joy of just getting to know her. I believe it's been over the past year now. And as I started to do these live video casts, I was very selective in who I wanted to bring on as an expert to interview because, you know me, I'm all about delivering over the top value. And, one of the first people that came to my mind was Heather Elliott because of the work she's doing in the world. It's truly fantastic. So, Heather, thank you so much for joining me today.
And thank you for having me.
Yay. I'm so excited to dive into mindset. When so many authors, speakers, and coaches who are listening, so many times when they start a business, they're trying to think of how do I make immediate money? How do I grow my following? But what they're not thinking of is how do I improve my mindset so that, everything flows better so that I'm being more productive, more efficient, I'm happier. All of these things contribute to our success in life. So mindset is the topic for today's video cast. And Heather, I want to start by just asking you to share your journey with us. You can start anywhere you want. I've had people start in childhood, and I've had people start just at the moment when they decided to become an entrepreneur. But I really want to give viewers an opportunity to hear from you. Why mindset? How did this unfold for you? So if you wouldn't mind, let's just start there.
Okay, cool. Okay, probably my journey starts more in the 80s. I was what I would call a perfectionist growing up in childhood. I used perfection as a way to feel pretty good about myself, and I was very good at it for the most part. So my journey actually starts in 1982 when I made what I consider to be one of the biggest mistakes morally and from every other standpoint that I could possibly make. I had an affair. And for me, marriage was a sacred event, and I could not accept nor just allow myself to do something that huge in my eyes without understanding why. And that's what my orientation is to understand why. So that began my search into all methods, I want to say holistic and otherwise, to try and figure out, okay, why did I do this thing? Because that is not who I desire to be. And that sent me on a 6-year search where I investigated physical health, but I also investigated mental health. And mental health from the perspective of mind, because that's where I discovered all this stuff on vision boards and affirmations and subliminal tapes. I was making my own subliminal tapes in the 80s before it ever became vogue, before anybody knew this was going on. And I had great success being able to create my world from this kind of focused vision. So it gave me inspiration. In the late 80s, I discovered a school for the mind called the Ramtha School of Enlightenment out west in Washington State. And I began going to this school. And the teacher of this school he's pretty revolutionary in the sense that it's a channeled being. So if you have any kind of misgivings around channeling, but his message was so compelling for its time. He encouraged us to understand that we're the creators of our world, that mind and reality are linked, and that in order to understand ourselves, we needed to understand the mind that was creating our world.
Sure.
So he awakened in me this curiosity, this passion to understand how it is we create our world from our mind. So he gave us lessons in neurobiology and quantum physics, and he taught us through a variety of disciplines that are, again, very different. But it formed a link in my mind that said my world's a manifestation of my mind. So therefore, if I want to change my world, I need to change it here. And that became my quest to find out how do you do that. And then in the 90s, I discovered a methodology called core belief engineering, which was the first way I learned to be able to safely enter the mind to understand, gee whiz, how are we put together neurologically? How did we form our psychology as a human being?
Right.
And that tool gave me, it's a microscope, and I suddenly saw into the world of the mind like a scientist would see into the world of a petri dish using this microscope. And what I saw in there was nothing short of fantabulous. And I used that tool for hundreds of clients to begin to shift their world, to shift their perceptions, and also to shift myself, because all of that stuff you describe about an entrepreneur, you know, they need to prepare themselves to be an entrepreneur. Well, while I was helping my clients, I would work with them, go home and do a process on me. And then
Sure,
I'd go and do my next
absolutely.
client, go home and do a process on me. And through that process, I began to understand what the foundation of business, success in life, health, all has to do with. So that's my journey. And here I am. Oh yeah, in 2010, I developed my own product because what I started with was too small. It didn't expand into the arenas that I was expanding into.
Wow, so fast. I've got like 14 million questions right now. So where do we begin on this journey? I mean, because, I know about limiting beliefs, and I know that that has, gosh, repeatedly come up in my own life. When I finally discovered my limiting belief at a Tony Robbins conference, I'm not good enough. It's many people's belief. But I
Yeah.
started tracing back all of the events that happened in my life to really validate that for me. And then
Yes.
even recently, what was so crazy that came up for me is that my very best isn't even good enough. And that was just a matter of a couple of months ago. And I was so grateful for that aha and then tracing that back. And so where, if we kind of have a sense of these patterns coming up, but where do we even begin to overcome them or manage them? I mean, what do we do there?
Well, if you're talking about a conscious strategy, what you can do is that you can become aware or mindful, I call it, of the times in which you're doing something that is coming out of that root
Mm-hmm.
belief system that you're trying to transcend.
Yep.
And in that process, you can go around it. It's kind of like, okay, I see an obstacle, so now I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead. So in the beginning stages, what I would ask myself is, if I weren't feeling X, which is not good enough or not the
Mm-hmm.
best or whatever, what would I be doing instead? And then I go do that.
So it's just
So
real, it's just redirecting it. It's
it's
awareness,
redirecting.
redirecting it.
And in terms of what you described in terms of the history, I mean, that's part of what we do in mindful change, is that we help people to uncover their story. So in the case of I have to be the best or whatever it was you described there, there's a way that you can have a conscious conversation to take it back and to find out the bigger story on that one. And once you have the bigger story, you can transform it. Because, you see, the story is something you told yourself, Amber. No
Right.
one else, I mean, somebody else may
Totally.
have prompted you to say these things to yourself, but the reality is you told yourself this story, and the only one that can rewrite it is you. And the way you do that is because you emotionally accept a greater understanding. That's the key to change, and that's the work of mindful change.
And it's almost maybe changing your perspective on it. So, for example,
Yes.
something that led to me to believe that I'm not good enough is that my sister, and I've told this story before, she was the star child, Miss Teen Arizona, straight A student, perfectly clean and organized, and had all the friends. I was like the polar opposite of I was a total slob. I didn't have friends. I was just suffering inside. But that was an example of, I'm not good enough. I'm not of her caliber. So by
Yes.
retracing that story, you're saying uncovering it, you can almost look at it from a different perspective, maybe
Yes.
a more mature perspective,
Yes.
and then rewrite the story so that you're changing all of these patterns you've developed over the years then.
Yes. You
I
can.
get it.
Yeah. The thing is that you can even try something like writing that child that you were a letter. And if you had her on your lap right now, or if you were sitting there having a conversation with her, what would you tell her today that she didn't hear back then? And
Mm-hmm.
the key is to form an emotional link to that, to allow the emotion of what you're saying to
Mm.
bleed through into your past. Because the other cool thing about the mind, Amber, is it's a time machine. And that's what many people don't realize, is that your past lives in the present moment, in your head. And the way you can affect change in your life is to visit your past and make a change, just like time travel. Imagine being 10 years old and having your 34-year-old self visit you and say to you, you know what? Relax, relax. You're fine. Imagine what can happen if you have that kind of a visit from your future. But you see, your mind is a time machine. If you think of the concept of the present, the all-encompassing present, what it's really saying is there is no past, present, and future. It's all happening right now. so that your 10-year-old is still alive in your head, just like your
Yeah.
32-year-old or whatever is alive in your head today. So
Yeah.
those two can meet in your mind, and you can affect huge change by bringing those two together.
Gosh, that makes so much sense. I really love the way that you put that. So, for any skeptics out there that are, not totally sold on this, because I mean, I am. I've done the work, I've seen the change, but do you have any examples of clients that you've taken through a certain process that have gotten a result? I mean, if people really do the work, what can they expect?
Okay. When I work with business people, for instance, um, we look at whatever pattern, the central pattern that's holding them back in some ways, and what they become conscious of is what that is.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking of one lady I've worked with quite a few times. She came in, and I would say that her reality was a fractured mess, as in she had a business, it did okay,
Okay.
it wasn't terrific, but her psyche, her psycho-emotional health and well-being was an absolute mess. So what we did is that we rebuilt her. Think of Humpty Dumpty, and think of self-esteem and self-worth and all of those wonderful belief systems. They got completely messed up in her past. And so we went back and we basically resurrected and changed and healed and resolved all of those fractured pieces. And as we did, miraculously, what happened is her business started to shift. Is that, what was just sort of
Mm.
struggling and limping along started to thrive. She opened doorways to new opportunities. She became a TV personality, actually, at one point, using her business as a launch pad. She found solutions to problems. She hired new people that were able to figure out her finances and do a better job of it. She became less reactive and more
Mm.
proactive about her business. And her business started to grow and it started to get legs. The foundation of it was stable because she was
Wow.
stable. And what business people need to know is that their business is a reflection of their mind. So that whatever is happening in you is happening in your business. And it's being reflected through the people you hire, the
That's so
systems
awesome.
you use, the success you have. It's all about you, honey. And that's
So
the
true.
biggest thing that you need to accept is that it's right in here that your business is occurring. And that reality is here. That is merely the reflection.
That is, it's so true. I mean, I know this is true, and I just really hope it's getting, if we're imparting it the right way so that the people listening will say, oh, maybe I need to have a mindset shift here, because you absolutely do. And so, Heather, do you find that there are multiple mindset shifts that need to be made? Is it kind of the same core belief, like I'm not good enough, or are there
Mhm.
many different beliefs that are built up and you kind of need to tackle one at a time, or
It's many different systems inside you, okay?
okay,
Many different belief systems. Some of them we can get all at once. Others have to be addressed individually. But the
okay.
I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. These are core things that need to shift for self-esteem to come into place. Think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay?
Okay.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs begins with the physical needs of air, water, shelter. I can't forget, the fourth one is missing. The
Okay.
next layer is safety, physical safety. And the thing is that that has to be in place. So the belief systems around people's physical safety, they're still running. If it, I know of millionaires that live as if they're paupers, as if they're always running because they're never safe enough, they never have enough, and their survival is
Mm,
always not guaranteed. So that when you look at belief systems, there's belief systems around safety. The world is an unsafe place. I can't trust people. I can't trust myself. I can't trust the world. Those are all things that will affect your business and how you do business. The next
mhm,
layer is love, which has to do with self-esteem, self-worth, and integrity, a feeling of self-love and self-respect that you need in order to build a stable foundation for your business. And then you go to the next level, which is really about self-esteem, which is where you get into the confidence piece. So you've got beliefs around your capabilities, your intelligence,
right.
the optimism, the belief in your future, the belief that you're in charge of your future, all of that sense of power and I can have an effect in life. So there's a whole belief system in there. There's also a belief system around money and how
Oh
much I can
yeah.
have. And believe me, part of this is the belief system you've developed about yourself in relationship to other people. So you've got a mother in your head, you've got a father in your head, and these things are all affecting how you see yourself, and so identity is all locked in here. And then you get to the beliefs on self-actualization, and that to me is where the whole concept of passion and mission and the bigger picture of who we are comes into being, and you have beliefs on that. So there is a mindset, a belief structure for all of it, Amber. And so when I'm looking at somebody's life, you know, it's just a matter of it's like you heal and resolve, heal and resolve, heal and resolve the different
Sure.
layers of issues.
Wow. And so, gosh, I wonder if there's an exercise that people could do somewhere in there where you're listing out the different categories as you just mentioned. And for those of you watching, you can also rewind the video and be able to write it all down again. But do you think there's an exercise in there of writing down the categories and maybe writing down what you think your conscious belief is about those things? I mean, I know you can't really dig too much in the subconscious maybe without the support of somebody like you to kind of guide that into their real belief system, right?
Hmm. Well, what I suggest to people that they do is that they can get into a quiet kind of meditative state
Mm-hmm.
where they can connect inside. And when they connect inside, they can ask themselves some questions, and whatever answers first come into their mind, they write them down on a piece of paper that they would have with them. And so they can ask themselves the question, well, what do I really believe about myself? What do I really believe about my capability? What do I really believe about business? What do I really believe about money? How lovable do I really believe myself to be, and how deserving do I believe myself to be? And you can even ask inside, what beliefs limit me the most, and see what comes up.
And
You
then
know?
you can also time travel back to try to piece together what experiences created that. And
Yes.
then, like we said earlier, go back and heal it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Gosh,
Absolutely.
this is so incredible. I'm loving this. So, um, what have we not talked about? I mean, I'm really wanting to ask you the best questions here in the last 10 minutes. I know that money mindset is a huge one, if we could talk about that for a minute, because I know that I have clients that say that they, you know, there's so many issues around money. Number one, they struggle to ask for the order because they're really uncomfortable about that. They're uncomfortable about charging a higher amount. They say, "Oh, well, I'm not in business to make money. It's not about that." But really, there's a huge mindset block there, and I think it's really preventing them from being profitable in their business and really following through with making sales, making products and programs. Do you have any insight in there as to why we have that money mindset and how we can adjust it so that we can kind of, be more profitable in our business?
Well, in the absence of having a coach, which I would recommend, is that I
Absolutely.
firmly believe that a coach, a business coach of some nature, is critical. Somebody that has an awareness of mindset and how important it is to you, because your coach becomes a reflection of what they hear out of your mouth.
Mm.
So that what you just said there, when you say that you have a client that says to you, I'm not in business to make money, I would be saying to the client, do you understand how that now manifests in your life? I would be asking them the question, list all the ways that that particular belief system is affecting what you do in life, and just have them go into that quiet space and brainstorm it, and they'll begin to realize that they do probably 8 or 10 different things that sabotage their ability to make money. And then you can
Mm.
just simply ask them, is this really what you want? And if it isn't, then okay, if we were to reframe that and decide that making money was okay, what would you be doing differently? And go from that perspective. So people need to find a way to become aware of themselves. I call it mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
of being in that observer position, watching their responses, their behaviors to things, and saying, gee whiz, I wonder why I do that. I wonder why I don't want to charge more money, like, and dig down a little bit, like go research it and say to myself, well, where does that come from? And why do I feel that way? And then what I always say is that, if it doesn't make any sense, do something else. So if not asking for more money is coming out of fear, and
Mm-hmm.
fear you don't want to project into your world because it just gets more fear,
Yeah.
then I would be saying to myself, okay, if I weren't afraid right now, what would I be doing differently? And then I go do it.
Absolutely.
But you have to get mindful, because the first part of my journey was to start to observe my own mind, was to pay attention to my motivations, to pay attention to what immediately I was thinking about preceding an action or before I opened my mouth to say something. And I knew that I need to make sure that's a reflection of my highest, best self, because I'm putting that into my field and it's going to come back to me in terms of my reality. And I always use that question. If I found limitation, I'd say to myself, what would I do if I weren't limited in this moment? And it seemed to work. But mindfulness is critical to people. And so, yeah. Did I answer your
Gosh.
question?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
We are giving so much specific, targeted, value-based advice, and I'm loving this interview. Thank you so much. And Heather, I want to ask you what is a typical process for somebody to work with you? I mean, is there a structure to it where you kind of go through a certain number of sessions, or is it more flexible than that? I mean, if somebody wanted to come to you and really once and for all figure out what's holding them back, how would they go through that process with you?
Ideally, I recommend working with me for 5 or 6 months and doing a minimum of 3 to 4 processes with me, because as you can see, the number of belief systems that you need to tackle to begin to rewrite your life is huge. So that's my recommended best suggestion. And during that time, so they would work with me 3 to 4 different whole days, because my processes are whole day events. So in terms of digging back and finding the story behind your belief system, it takes between 5 and 7 hours to do that. So they spend an entire day with me, and in between sessions, so they would have 3 or 4 of those full day events, they are going to work with me for 2 different hours, just in a coaching modality, to talk like you and I are talking today, to talk through what's happening in their life, to make them more mindful, to make them more conscious of their world and how it is that they can be doing things differently. Because a lot of people, like, what you don't know about your mind is that it's a warehouse of information you've collected in your journey. It's like the internet. The internet abounds with information, but you have to decide what is truth and what is not truth, and you need to find the most current and the most relevant information. Well, your mind is the same thing. And the other thing you can do is begin to dump the resources that are old and outdated and start to incorporate new stuff. And that really is what your mind is designed to do. But so many of us just load in old programs and leave them there. So anyway, that's my recommended process. But the other way that people can work with me is just process to process, which is, they come in, they talk to me, they get excited, they want to do the work, they work with me for a day, and we assess what change they get, and they get a small amount of coaching with that as well. Okay. So it's kind of like one or the other. And the other way that they work with me is they want just a mindset assessment. So they like to come in and they'd like to find out, okay, based on what I see in their reality, what are their top hits? What do they need to work on? And then we work at a conscious level to build conscious strategies to deal with what's happening in their life. So that's the third way they can do it. And that doesn't involve day-long processes. That's just involves coaching.
Okay, great. And I also want to add, this might be a good time to add that when we were doing the Authentic Business Success Summit, I asked Heather to come on board and see if she was willing to donate a bonus gift to the members that bought into the summit. And she didn't just come up with some gift. I mean, she came up with a wow kind of package. And it was so incredible that I really want to offer that to everybody that is watching this video as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, you want to head over to amberludwig.com and you can find this video in the blog archive section. But below, you're going to see her whole package listed there for you, and you'll be able to get that for free from Heather and take a deep dive into these concepts even more. And Heather, I want to ask you, what are you excited about in your business right now? What direction are you headed in? What type of client are you ideally working with? What are you excited about?
I'm heading more into a business orientation. So I've done a lot of work with clients around personal stuff and around relationship stuff, and I'm starting to get my feet really anchored into the business stuff so that I can take it to a new level. But along with that, I've decided to write a book. And I've written a small ebook with the help of your friend Judith Briles, bless her heart, and she's going to help me write the bigger book, which is Same Shit, Different Day, which is the Groundhog Day effect. Do you know what the Groundhog Day effect is?
We keep waking up Doing the
in
same
the
thing.
same day.
Yeah.
And when you get used to the mind, what you realize, that's exactly what you're doing. And so I want to awaken people
I
to the
love
fact
that.
that it's same shit, different day, different cast of characters. That if you really look at it, a lot of what you're accepting in your life today is nothing but a replay of themes and patterns you learned in childhood, played through the lens of the same people or of different people.
So
So
true.
when you understand that, that's where a lot of blocks are too. It's called the culture of the mind. The culture is just re-expressing itself through different players. So we'll write a book this year, and the other thing I'm doing is more seriously expanding the training program to train others to do what I do. I
Oh,
figure
great.
that what I've developed and what I've learned to do is so important and so effective that I'd love to train other people to do what I do. So I am in the process of bringing that whole thing online so that it can be done remotely with people who don't live close by.
I love that. This is part of creating your legacy.
Yes.
I think that is so awesome that you're thinking that way, and I know that in my blog posts and videos and things like that, especially this year, I've been talking about how to go from an authentic messenger to a leader to then creating a lasting legacy. So I love to see that you're doing that, Heather. And as we wind down on our time here together, and just a couple minutes left, we've got entrepreneurs here that are really trying to make this their year. They're trying to make their mark on the world and impact lives and monetize their message as well. Do you have any lasting advice for them as they, launch off from here, knowing that they're going to come across all of these obstacles? Any last tips to help them through that time?
Always choose love, is what I say. Is it projecting love into the world is the ticket to abundance.
Hmm.
Get really, really good at being your best, brightest, most loving and respecting version of yourself. Editing out all the negativity, all the drama, all the judgment, the blame, and getting really responsible for your life and deciding that I need to be that person that I want to meet out there. I need to be the person so that I attract the community of people to me that I really want to relate to. And it is being that committed to overcome all of your junk that keeps you in all of the negativity and the denser frequencies that you commit to. And if you do that, you will rise above and create a new future for yourself.
Gosh, I love that, especially when you said be responsible for your life. As far as we know, this is our one and only life. And wouldn't you love to just be happy and light and free and do the things that you want to do and live the kind of life that you really want to have? And that is what's possible when you implement these things that Heather is talking about and really looking back into your past, looking at your core beliefs, and really developing that person you ultimately want to be. And it is possible, I'm telling you. So I encourage you to download Heather's bonus package, contact her to see if it's a fit and how you might be able to work with her, because you deserve it. You deserve happiness. You deserve the life that you love. So Heather, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. And I also want to invite the viewers that if you want, make a comment below this video and let us know your top takeaway from today's interview, as well as any questions that you have. And if you have any questions directed at Heather, I will be sure to ask her to participate and comment back to you. Otherwise, you'll hear from me as usual. And definitely help us share this interview on social networks, because we gave some extremely valuable content today. Want to make sure that we can make an impact with the people that you know as well, and make sure that everybody is really getting aware of how they can shift their mind and their perspective to really create the kind of life that they love. So Heather, I just want to thank you again so much for your time. It was really wonderful to connect.
And thank you. I really enjoyed speaking to you, Amber.
Okay, great. All right, guys, we'll
Bye.
catch you next week. And thank you so much for your time today to carve it out for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.